3 haunted birthday celebrations, sinister secrets revealed in terrifying true stories. In the bright facade of Maplewood Lane, the pristine homes shared a buried horror. Today, 3 families were obliviously celebrating their children's birthdays, unaware of the creeping doom that clung to their festive balloons like smoke. The sun beamed down as laughter rang out, but the atmosphere thrummed with an unsettling undercurrent. As the first guests waltzed into Rebecca and John's backyard, a high-pitched scream of a woman echoed in the distance, sending chills down spines. But everyone brushed it off, burying their unease beneath a layer of sugary frosting. The air buzzed with excitement, yet the flickering overhead lights cast twisted shadows, swaying like apparitions in the bright sunshine. As Rebecca gleefully arranged the pastel-colored cake, memories of childhood brought a soft smile to her face. But it felt as if something sinister lingered near, concealed beneath the cheerful chatter. Just then, the record player, a relic from a forgotten era, whirred to life on its own. A haunting melody filled the backyard, eerie and melancholic, a soundtrack to the day that no one remembered bringing out. The retired police officer, Mr. Johnson, shifted uncomfortably, his seasoned eyes darting through the cheerful crowd, searching for something unseen. The uneasiness in his gut sat heavily as he recalled lurking shadows from his years on duty. Nearby, Mrs. Henderson swooped in, sipping her punch, and couldn't resist dropping hints like poison. "You know, this neighborhood has a history of strange happenings. All those birthdays, well, let us just say the joy doesn't always last." Her whisper dripped with malice and left a bitter tang in the air. The laughter from the children, their vibrant joy, turned into an exaggerated giggle that echoed sharply. It was as if a veil was lifting, secrets loomed, each moment burdened with feelings of dread. A child stumbled upon an old photograph beneath the porch, its edges curling, revealing not just the smiling faces of families long gone, but a tragic connection to the tales Mrs. Henderson spoke of. As shadows crept in with dusk's embrace, the fleeting innocence deteriorated, leaving behind anxious whispers rattling through the young ones. The flickering lights began to sync with their rapid heartbeats, as if taunting them to uncover the truth hidden beneath their celebrations. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The children darted between the fading balloons, their fear transforming curiosity into a desperate mission for answers. Each secret corner of the yard felt alive with stories of old. Meanwhile, the adults exchanged tense glances, their hearts pounding against the thick veil of denial. Mr. Johnson's presence only deepened the shadows, stirring buried memories of corruption into the evening's chill. They never knew how close that darkness lingered, how tightly the roots of their community connected to grief and denial. As they approached the towering old oak at the backyard's edge, an ominous presence took root in their souls. The earth trembled beneath them, and they gasped, gripped by fear and potential calamity. The creature of their intertwined past beckoned them into the spiraling abyss of familial shame, poised to capitalize on their newfound terror. Long-held secrets entwined like vines ascended upward, seeking out fresh vulnerability within their hearts, whispering of an ancient curse that demanded attention. As the night thickened, they sensed they had awakened a force they couldn't control. Their laughter felt hollow now, layered with anxiety. Even the bravest dared not speak. And as silent questions hung in the air, they wondered, what had they unleashed on their children? The darkness had broken free, their innocence may never return. The chilling strains of the ghostly melody rose once more, testing loyalties, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. The shadows wrapped around the celebrations like a thick fog, suffocating any remnants of joy. Mr. Johnson felt a tightening in his chest, an instinctual response, a flare lighting the dark corners of his mind. He took a cautious step back, observing the children now frozen, their playful laughter eerily stilled. Eyes wide and glistening, they stared at something beyond the gathered adults. Their world, once so full of delight, was now an unsettling blend of fear and confusion. In a panic, he turned toward the direction of the old oak. The whispers of the night swelled like the sudden gust of a wind storm, rustling the leaves. Something was moving there, shifting in the contours of twilight. The air was dense and heavy, vibrating with a low hum that resonated deep within him. Not far from the gnarled roots, something glimmered, a child's trinket long forgotten. "Luke!" Rebecca shouted, her voice breaking the thick silence. She rushed forward as her young son knelt beside the object. It was a tarnished locket, encrusted with dirt, but it wasn't the locket that frightened Mr. Johnson. It was the look on Luke's face as he opened it, a flash of recognition mingled with horror on the boy's innocent features. In that moment, the flickering lights overhead surged violently, casting twisted shadows that danced maniacally. The haunting melody grew louder, now almost a cacophony that filled every corner of the yard. Each note sang of sorrow, of lives taken too soon, of birthdays celebrated in ignorance of the untold tragedies that came before them. Then the scream pierced the night again, sharp and unholy, as Mrs. Henderson's smile shattered into a mask of terror. "No, it's begun!" she shrieked, clutching her head as if trying to dispel a malevolent force. Her eyes darted wildly, a trapped animal searching for a way out, but it was too late. All at once, the children began to cry. Their small bodies shook as if they were absorbing the fear hanging in the air, a weight far too heavy for their fragile souls. Rebecca rushed to Luke, tugging him away from the locket, but he wouldn't move. His gaze remained fixed, eyes wide, as if the locket revealed a truth so profound it paralyzed him. John joined his wife, his voice a hoarse whisper. "What did you see, Luke?" But Luke only shook his head. Tears streamed down his cheeks, and he kept staring, transfixed by the darkness creeping around his small frame like a hungry entity waiting to pounce. Moments stretched like eternity. The adults looked to each other, fear blurring their familiar faces. Then Mr. Johnson stepped forward, drawing on years of dealing with shadows too dark to grasp. "We either face this together or we lose them forever." The melody twisted, now enveloping them like a cold embrace. It felt alive, an entity feeding off their fear. As the adults huddled around the children, panic morphed into desperation. They had to break this cycle, they had to understand what they had unearthed in their idyllic celebration. But from the shadows of the oak, a figure began to emerge. Cloaked in darkness, its face obscured, it seemed to pull the very essence of their fears into itself. Murmurs of longing mixed with cries of horror filled the void. It drew ever closer, the air around it crackling with a life of its own. As it raised a skeletal hand, whispering something no one could comprehend, the world of the living collided painfully with the echoes of the past. And suddenly, in that electric moment, all thought of birthday cakes and balloons vanished. What would it demand from them? What price was to be paid? The question hung heavily in the air, echoing through the past as the darkness wrapped tighter around their fates. Then silence. The children shivered, sensing the weight of something colossal about to break free. Just then, a baby's laugh broke the intensity. But would it be a laugh of joy or a sign of doom? What remained hidden in the locket could change everything. The figure loomed closer, shrouded in a black fog that thickened with each heartbeat. The skeletal hand, now stretched wide, seemed to absorb the very light around it, making the darkness more profound. Mr. Johnson felt a sweat bead on his forehead, the air heavy with dread. The other adults joined him, shoes crunching on the grass, their collective breaths hitching in their throats. "Run!" shouted Mr. Johnson, breaking the paralysis that had gripped them. But there was nowhere to flee. The laughter of the child echoed, mocking, amplifying the growing sense of betrayal that seeped into their hearts. The laughter morphed, twisted into wails, while the air around them turned sour. "Get the kids!" Rebecca cried out, desperation cracking her voice. She plunged toward Luke, gripping his arm, but he didn't budge. Eyes wide, he was lost in a trance, transfixed by something only he could perceive. The entity's voice slithered from its hidden mouth, 1,000 whispers intertwining into staccato murmurs. "You must remember," it hissed, each word wrapped in the chambers of their collective fears. "Remember what?" John shouted, panic flooding his voice. "What do you want from us?" But the figure's skeletal fingers beckoned, pulsating with a dark urgency. It pointed toward the locket, shadows swirling around it. It was as if it held the secrets of the dead, begging them to uncover what should remain buried. "No!" Mrs. Henderson cried, collapsing to the ground. "We shouldn't. We can't." But it was too late. The moment Luke's fingers brushed the locket again, the night erupted. The melody peaked, and the light fixtures exploded with a blast of sound and glass. The children screamed, their innocent joy twisted into a horror they couldn't comprehend. Then, the ground trembled beneath them. Gnarled roots flared like twisted fingers, reaching up as if to claw at their ankles, dragging them into the earth. The adults stumbled backward, trying to shield the children as tendrils of darkness reached for them, pulling them apart from their families. "Luke!" Rebecca's voice tore through the chaos. She lunged forward, but the shadow shifted, blocking her path. The darkness wrapped around her, pulling tight. In the midst of despair, Luke finally blinked, breaking his reverie. "Mom! I remember," he stammered, voice trembling. "The story, the lake." "What lake?" Mr. Johnson demanded, his mind racing as desperation fueled his instincts. If they had a chance, they needed to cling to any thread of understanding. Luke's gaze fell to the locket, which transformed in his hands, the tarnished silver glinting with newfound clarity. "The lake where the kids went missing." They never came back. The adults exchanged horrified glances, realization dawning like a cold wave of dread. The birthday celebrations were mere coincidences, a ritual forgotten, masquerading in the form of festivity. While the shadows waited, the whispers around them grew louder. "You must pay the price," the figure crooned, glee threading through its voice. "Uncover the lost, free the children, or lose your own." Terror washed over them. At that moment, they understood that this wasn't just a birthday gone wrong. It was a reckoning, a dark demand for justice, overdue and festering. And as the earth beneath them cracked open, a silhouette emerged from the darkness, the laughter of the children echoing around them like a sinister choir, now entwined with Luke's own terrified scream. What other horrors lay buried in the depths of their town's history? The certainty that something must be done grew stronger, but what would that require of them? As the shadow closed in, a fragile thread of hope flickered. Could they turn back time, confront the past, or were they chained to the very fate they now faced? And in the deepening silence, they knew, the locket was just the beginning. The ground shifted violently as the laughter of the children melded with the wails echoing from the shadows, creating a haunting discord that twisted through the air. Mr. Johnson's heart raced, pounding against his ribcage like a desperate prisoner seeking escape. He could barely breathe. The figure loomed, its skeletal fingers draped with the weight of forgotten souls, reaching closer, closer. "Luke!" Rebecca cried again, her voice breaking. She fumbled, eyes wild, searching for a way to break through the lurking darkness's grip. "Hold on. Remember your mom." Yet Luke stood still, a puppet of dread, caught between instinct and the sinister call of the locket. The air stank of rot, the sharp taste of fear prickling at the back of his throat. His mind swirled. The lake, those kids. The shadows shifted, their presence an omnipresent threat, vibrating with the tension of countless lost memories. John's face turned pale as he grabbed the collar of Luke's shirt. "Snap out of it, boy!" he shouted, shaking his friend. "This isn't a game. We need you." But Luke remained frozen, his eyes locked onto the locket, where silvery light wavered like the specter of the slain. "The lake, it's calling me," he muttered, as if in a trance, unseeing of the chaos enveloping them. The entity advanced, its whispers thick and suffocating, curling around their throats like ghostly fingers. "You must remember," it urged, urgency creeping into its voice, the melody shifting, growing frantic. In a surge of instinct, Rebecca lunged once more, pushing through the shadows that clawed at her. With a heave, she knocked the locket from Luke's grip. It clattered to the ground, and at that moment, a piercing scream erupted from the darkness. The ground rumbled, the shadows recoiled as if burned. Silent gasps filled the night as the children finally broke free from their stupor, taking in the chaotic scene. With horror, they realized their parents were in danger. "Mom! Dad!" they cried, voices piercing the night's shroud. But the figure only hissed, directly confronting Luke. "You speak of a lake. Tell them. They must pay the price." Barely taking a breath, reflecting on the childhood tales passed through whispers, Luke choked out, They didn't drown. They were taken. The lake was a trap." Every adult gasped, realization washing over them. They weren't just haunted by loss, they had been unwitting participants in a dark cycle. The fog intensified, turning the world around them into an oppressive gray, and whispers morphed into distant cries, echoing tales of long-lost children. The air thickened with the memories of days when laughter echoed over the now silent waters. "Stop it!" Rebecca shouted, her voice snapping like a whip. "You're tormenting us. Tell us what we need to do. Please." In response, the shadows surged forward, tendrils reaching for every soul present, desperate to reclaim what was once theirs. Luke's eyes met the entity's ghastly gaze as realization dawned upon him. Memory flickered like a light bulb on the verge of burnout. Through the chaos encircling them, a voice from somewhere deep within Luke's mind shouted against the suffocating dark. "We have to go to the lake." Suddenly, the shadows pulled slightly back, almost surprised. Was that a threat of fear they sensed? As if testing their resolve, the figure swirled into a vortex of darkness that shrieked, "Then go. But if you seek life, be prepared for the truth. The lake never forgets." As the air chilled, tightening around their chests, they could feel the weight of ancient secrets crashing down upon them. The urgency to escape the realm of shadows surged, propelling them toward the path leading to the lake. Would brave hearts find redemption on the shores where lost children lingered? Or would they join those already trapped within the watery grave, forever ensnared by the lurking darkness filled with whispered screams? With dread settled in their bones, they moved forward, hearts racing toward a fate unknown. The night air hung thick with anticipation, and in that pregnant silence, an unspoken question lingered. What awaited them at the lake, and would they all return? The silence wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket as they trudged down the overgrown path leading to the lake. Each footstep echoed, a hollow sound that seemed to mock their fear. Luke led the way, instinctively drawn toward the water, while Rebecca and John flanked him, glancing nervously at the darkness looming behind. The laughter of the children grew dimmer, replaced by the heavy heartbeat of dread in their own chests. "Do you think we could just run?" John whispered, looking back at the swirling shadows, their forms twisting ominously. But even as he spoke, the ground seemed to ripple underfoot, as if the very earth was warning them to reconsider. "No," Rebecca said fiercely, determination igniting in her eyes. "We need to confront it. We need to know what is happening. We have to stop this whatever it is." As they approached the water's edge, the moon cast an unsettling glow over the dark, rippling surface. The lake looked serene, but the air bristled with a latent menace. This was no ordinary body of water. It felt alive, breathing, whispering stories of lost innocence and stolen souls. "What if the kids are still out there?" Luke murmured, his voice barely audible, as if speaking too loudly would wake the restless spirits. A chill skated down his spine. "They have to be. If they were taken, they might still be trapped," Rebecca replied, her gaze fixed on the murky ripples. "We have to find them." A sudden wind stirred, blowing through the trees like a low moan. The darkness at the edge of the lake pulsed, and with it came a cacophony of distant voices. "They won't let us leave until we do," Luke said, fear and resolution warring within him. Something deep inside him knew they had unleashed something terrible. As if on cue, shadows began to writhe and dance at the water's surface, forming vague shapes, children's faces, stretching, reaching, mouths open in silent screams. Luke staggered backward, horror tying his stomach in knots. This isn't right at all. They need our help. Rebecca shouted over the whispers, feeling a sudden surge of courage. We can't just stand here. The moment she stepped closer to the lake, the voices surged, becoming coherent. Help us! Help us! They cried, the sound sharp and urgent. Luke felt like he was being pulled under, trapped in the tide of despair emanating from the lake. Rebecca, no! John shouted, grabbing her arm. But her eyes were locked on the water, entranced by the figures lurking just beneath the surface. We have to go in. She cried, barely resisting his grip. They're in there. The shadows writhed closer, their shapes merging into jagged forms that reached for her. Luke's heart raced as he wrestled with the fear clawing at his mind. Were those really the lost children? Or a sinister trick by the very lake they yearned to save? The locket lay forgotten in the grass, its silver glint now dull, like a memory too painful to hold. Stay back! Luke yelled, stepping forward, flooding the space with urgency. We need a plan. We can't just dive in. What if we end up like them? But before they could formulate a solution, the lake responded to their fears. The water started to bubble violently, and a thick mist began to rise from its depths. Shapes surged upward, and suddenly, the sound morphed, no longer cries for salvation, but a deafening roar, echoing the anguish of countless lost souls flashing through time. The shadows coalesced into a swirling vortex of despair stretching upward, revealing more daunted faces of children. Eyes wide with terror, they clawed at the air. We're running out of time. John yelled, panic overtaking him. The aura of dread filled the night, the shadows closing in once more. In the chaos, Luke took a deep breath. We can't just run. They need us. They need us to listen. He stepped forward, ready to take the leap into the abyss swirling around them. As the wind howled, a voice rang out from the vortex, echoing with ancient malice. Only those who are brave enough to uncover the truth will find freedom beyond the water. His body tensed, heart hammering in his chest, as he faced the depths before him. The question loomed just as ominously as the figure in the mist. Would courage unlock the mystery, or would it seal their fate forever? What horrific truth lay beneath those dark waves, waiting to be uncovered? And would they be the last to know? The dark water churned, and Rebecca felt an intoxicating pull, a magnetic force that whispered promises of lost children and forgotten laughter. The cries morphed into a melody, and she was entranced, teetering dangerously close to the edge. Rebecca! Snap out of it! Luke yelled, his voice cutting through the thrumming chaos. He rushed to grab her shoulder, feeling the low thrum of energy radiating from the water. The moment his hand made contact, she jolted, fear flooding back. They need us, we can't, she stammered, shaking her head violently to clear the haze. Stop! We don't know what's down there. John's eyes darted between them and the lake. He could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching, and dread coursed through his veins like ice. It's a trap. I know it. The whispering intensified, now mixed with something darker, a low, guttural growl. The mist thickened, swirling around them with a ferocity that sent shards of panic racing through their minds. With every breath, the air felt heavier, thick with despair. Shadows writhed and stretched, showing more horrifying glimpses of children's faces twisted in agony. Please help us, a small voice cut through the chaos, soft yet filled with unbearable sorrow. It came from all directions, wrapping around them like a noose. Luke's breath hitched as he strained to make sense of it, his resolve waning. No. He whispered, shaking his head as he fought against the overwhelming urge to step into the cursed water. This isn't right. They're trapped, but not like that. What if they can help? Rebecca said, her breath trembling but her spirit ignited. She stepped closer once more, drawn yet terrified. Maybe if we just listen a little longer. No. John interjected, desperation infusing his voice. They are not lost but ensnared, caught in a nightmare. We have to be the ones to fight back, not fall into their tragedy. As if in response to their conflicting wills, the lake erupted, the water exploded from its confines, shooting upward like a fountain of horrors. A grotesque figure splashed against the shore, hair matted with dark water, features obscured by the gloom. Luke recoiled, his heart pounding in his throat. "What is that?" he gasped, edging backwards. An echo of the past, the figure rasped, a voice like raking nails across glass. "A guardian of those who enter and never leave." John stumbled back, pulling Rebecca with him. "We have to go. Now." But the young woman stood frozen, staring into the abyss of the lake. What if it has the answers we need? What if there's a way to save them? The lake bubbled as a chorus of voices rose higher, filling the air with a haunting symphony, each note twisting deeper into their hearts. "Join us, come closer," we know. Suddenly, the figure advanced, its arm extending through the mist, a bony finger pointing accusingly. "Only those who dare to embrace the truth will find peace above the surface." In that moment, time stood still. Luke, Rebecca, and John felt something in that statement reverberate within them, an older truth buried deep in the fabric of their fears. "What does that mean?" Rebecca cried, her voice shaking. "Embrace what?" Luke felt a chill crawl over him, like icy fingers wrapping around his throat. A deep sense of foreboding gripped his heart. Then the earth seemed to tremor beneath them, shaking with a primal rage. Shadows pulsed violently out toward the trio, threatening to consume them whole. "We don't have time," John shouted, dragging Rebecca back. "We don't have time to understand. We need to leave before it's too late." But as they turned to flee, the water surged, rising into a towering wave. They stood at the brink, heartbeats racing faster than they could comprehend. Fear took root as Luke turned back, one last look into the chaos that lay before them. The abyss stared back, depths unquantifiable, but more than fear lurked beneath. The whisper returned, clearer now, taunting them. "Choose or be chosen." As the wave began to crash, Luke reached for Rebecca and John, but a darkness enveloped him. He stumbled, moments drawing out as though time itself was mocking their decisions. Would they turn and run, condemning the lost children, or confront the terror rising beneath the surface? With hearts racing, the choice loomed ominously ahead. Would they uncover the horror that fused their fate with the lake, or would they become just another echo within its depths? And in the collapsing roar of the crashing waves, the question hung heavy: could they face the creep of despair to find salvation, or would the lake's sinister depths claim its due? Luke's heart raced as the wave came crashing down, the force of it sending icy droplets spraying everywhere. Panic surged through him, a frantic need to escape, but in the back of his mind, confusion spiraled. What choice had they been given? "Run!" John shouted, and that snapped Luke from his daze. They could not afford to hesitate. He grabbed Rebecca's arm, yanking her back as the wave curled ominously. "No!" she cried. "We can't leave them. We have to help." "Help?" John barked as he shoved Rebecca backwards, his fierce eyes filled with grim resolve. "What if it's a lie?" But Rebecca shook her head, determination sparking in her depths. "They're real, John. They're trapped. We have to know the truth." The figures in the mist danced closer, torment swirling around them. The echoes of children's laughter twisted into sobs, a melody of pure despair. Luke felt it tugging at his insides, a thread drawing him back. He wanted to scream, to run, to hide, yet, in that instant, the grotesque figure lunged forward, rising out of the water like a nightmare unbound. Its eyes glowed white-hot, piercing through the mist, locking onto Luke with haunting intensity. The cold seeped into his bones as he stumbled backward, nearly losing his footing. "Embrace the truth," the figure hissed as shadows writhed around it, taking shape, other lost souls, lingering in a haze of sorrow. "You cannot save them if you do not know their pain." "Shut up!" Luke shouted, trying to drown out the symphony of agony surrounding him. But instead, he felt an unbearable weight crash down around him, trapping him in place. John, sensing the danger swelling, turned to Rebecca, his voice trembling. "She's right. What if knowing is the only way?" He glanced back toward the lake, its depths frothing with madness. "Can't we just?" A flash of movement caught Luke's eye. The mist shifted, a child's figure emerged, but they were nothing but shadows, faces void of life, mouths open in soundless cries. "Save us, help us," they all whispered, a choir of spirits lost in time. The paralysis shattered, and Luke's muscles screamed for action. "No. They're just using you," he shouted, forcing himself to step closer despite every instinct telling him to flee. "Luke, don't!" Rebecca cried, but he was already leaning forward, reaching for something he couldn't understand yet felt so critically. "What if we could save them?" he whispered, his mind racing, grappling with the haunted faces in the mist. He felt an undeniable link, a connection that went beyond rational thought. John seized his shoulder, desperation pouring from him. "Don't! You're not thinking straight. It's a trap." The water roared again, crashing against the shore, as thunderous voices howled from the depths. "Embrace the truth or face the consequence." Suddenly, the ground shook violently as the cosmic weight of their choices spiraled into chaos. Snap! A twig broke underfoot, sounding far away yet sharp as a knife in the thickening air. "Don't let them in!" John screamed, his grip tightening on Luke. But in that moment, the lake roared again, and something colossal rose momentarily, blocking out the moonlit sky with a gnarled, shadowy shape that swept across the shore, and then, the ravenous whispers filled their ears once more, echoing loudly, "Join us," with hearts racing and souls at stake, reality warped around them like a runaway train. Would they choose to face their fears and unfold the truth of forgotten laughter, or would they turn away, allowing the lost to forever slip into the void? As the mist curled around their feet, the darkness clawing at them like a living thing, Luke made his decision. Behind him, he could sense both John and Rebecca hesitating. "I need to know," he breathed, stepping forward into the murky waters. Before he could take another breath, the world shifted, and the shadows lunged at him, grasping his ankles, pulling him toward the brink of oblivion. Would his daring access the truth, risking everything? Or would he lose his grip on reality completely, becoming one with the darkness that hungered for souls like his? And as the waters closed in around him, the echoing chorus rose to a crescendo. "Choose," they chanted, and the abyss beckoned dangerously tantalizing. The water surged around Luke, pulling him deeper into its cold embrace. His heart thundered in his chest, a warning against the dark whispers that clawed at his mind. "Let go!" He yelled at himself, but the shadows were relentless, tightening their grip, urging him to surrender. "Luke!" Rebecca's voice cracked through the chaos, but it felt far away. A desperate flicker of light surged in her eyes. "Hold on. Don't let them take you." But how could he hold on when his very essence seemed to be slipping away? He fought for breath, the icy water lapping at his face, his instincts screaming for him to thrash, to escape the shadows pulling him into the depths. That a haunting laugh reverberated in the air, a sound of twisted joy mingling with despair. "You want to understand?" The figure from the lake snarled, its mouth curling into a grotesque smile. "Then feel their grief, embrace the darkness." In that moment, the shadows swirled around him, and memories that weren't his flooded his mind, flashes of broken laughter, wet shoes on grass, and the echoes of lost joy. Faces twisted in agony flashed before him, children playing, their eyes wide with innocence, only to shift suddenly into terror. He felt their pain, lost birthdays, lost love, lost lives. "No!" he screamed, clamping his hands over his ears, but the whispers surged louder. "Join us, help us." As the last of his strength waned, images flooded in, deeper and darker. Rebecca's face appeared through the chaos, her eyes reflecting the same terror he felt. She was reaching for him, diving into the water, but a tendril of darkness shot up, wrapping around her ankle. "Rebecca!" Luke's throat burned, panic ripping through him again. John was right behind her, rushing forward, but another wave crashed, pushing him back. "Let go of them!" Luke roared, fury igniting within. With a surge of adrenaline, he powered through the constricting darkness, clawing at the figures that shielded Rebecca from him. The spirits screeched, an unearthly choir drowning out reality, but Luke glimpsed the flicker of her determination. "Fight it!" she shouted, pulling against the grip of the shadows. The terror in her voice pushed Luke further, igniting a primal need to save her. Just then, the whispers shifted, their tone fury mixed with seduction. "You can't save her, you can't even save yourself." "Oh, yes, I can. Get away from her." His fists clenched, energy coursing through him as he managed to yank Rebecca free. Together, they pulled each other up until they were gasping for air above the water's edge, but now, a malevolent energy surfaced from the depths, darker than midnight, eyes burning like stars. "You defy the inevitable," it hissed, voice slithering through the air. "You cannot escape the truth. Run!" John yelled, finally breaking free of whatever dark hold had tried to ensnare him. The three of them scrambled backward, the shadows recoiling as they caught their breath, fighting to formulate a plan. "Why did we come here?" Luke whispered, the weight of reality flooding back, but it felt distant, as if the truth lay behind a fog too thick to penetrate. "What are we supposed to know?" The shadows began to reform, taking shape in grotesque images of the tortured souls they had seen before, yet their eyes glimmered with an unsettling understanding. They weren't just lost, they were bound to this place, and somehow, their fate intertwined with Luke's, Rebecca's, and John's. The sky overhead darkened ominously, and a wrongness seeped into the very fabric of their surroundings. "They're warning us to leave," John said, looking over to the grotesque figures swirling at the water's edge. "We can't know what trapped them. We have to go." "No," Rebecca argued, desperation lacing her voice. "We can't turn away now. We can't just leave." But the lake's surface began to bubble, and from it rose a chilling reminder of their vulnerability. The whispers grew savage, demanding, overwhelming. "You tread upon our sorrow. Face your fears or be consumed." As the shadows lunged forward, ready to reclaim them, Luke felt the tide shift inside. He screamed against the rising swell, hoping for a connection beyond the darkness that hungered for their anguish. The trio stood shoulder to shoulder, hearts racing, breathless, grasping onto one another amid a tempest of chaos. They faced the gathering storm, knowing their next move would seal their fate. What truth would they find as the shadows closed in, desperate, clawing, eager for their despair? And as the last glimmer of moonlight vanished under the shadow's grasp, a voice echoed above the chaotic whispers, "Only one can break through." The shadows lunged at them, a roiling mass that seemed to come alive with an insatiable hunger. Luke's heart raced, panic gripping him with icy fingers. "We can't just stand here," he shouted. He turned to Rebecca and John, desperation echoing in his voice. "What do we do?" But there was no time for answers. The air thickened with dread, an oppressive pressure closing in like a vice. The grotesque figures emerged from the darkness, their eyes hollow and pleading. "You tread upon our sorrow," they whispered, voices layered with anguish and rage. "I don't want your sorrow," Luke shouted back, feeling a surge of clarity cutting through the chaos. "We're not here to take anything from you." But as he spoke, the figures leaned closer, their forms shifting, merging into the very darkness that surrounded them. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Rebecca stumbled, tears streaming down her face, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't lose you both. We have to hold on." The lake bubbled violently, sending up bursts of murky water that splashed against their faces. Luke wiped the grime from his eyes and glimpsed something in the depths, a glimmering object, glinting just out of reach. "No!" a voice screamed, though it felt like it was coming from inside his head, distorting the sound of his own thoughts. "Focus!" John yelled, gripping Luke's shoulder. "This can't be happening. We need to focus on each other." The urgency in his voice struck through the madness, allowing Luke to momentarily tether his thoughts. Footsteps echoed behind them. They turned as the figures from the lake stretched their arms, longing for freedom or perhaps dragging them into despair. The bond they needed to forge came with a heavy price. The shadows writhed, screaming out in pain, pleading for release, plunging their souls into an unending cycle of chaos. Together. Rebecca cried, a steely determination lining her features. We can break this. And just like that, they formed a circle, grasping tight, hearts beating as one against the oppressive weight of despair. On 3. Luke said, rallying their strength. 1, 2, 3. In unison, they tugged at the darkness, feeling the grime peel away like layers of rotten skin. But the ground shook violently, as if refusing to relent. The whispers crescendoed, forming a chorus of chaos that threatened to drown them once again. You cannot escape, you cannot escape. No. Luke screamed, louder than he had ever dared. We will break this cycle. His fury ignited the bond they were creating, a blazing light cutting through the shadows. The darkness around them recoiled, thicker, heavier, but Luke felt a shift, the glimmer beneath the water pulsed, almost like a heartbeat, in sync with their own rising energy. Rebecca, what do you see? John's voice broke through the turmoil, pulling Luke back from the edge of panic. Look past the darkness. What is that? I see a door. Rebecca was saying, disbelief etched on her face. It's at the bottom, wait, no, maybe we can reach it. All we have to do is suddenly, a deafening roar erupted from deep within the depths. The shadows surged back, howling with a ferocity that rattled the air. The figures twisted into monstrous forms, their elongated limbs reaching and clawing, ready to snatch them away. With resolute strength, Luke felt the danger pull back, a flicker igniting in his chest. We'll find that door. He declared to his friends, knowing they couldn't lose hope, not now, but just as they readied themselves to dive, the figures began to chant a singular, haunting phrase that echoed deep, only one can break through. Luke's heart sank. What does that mean? He glanced at Rebecca and John desperately. One of them might have to sacrifice everything to uncover the truth. As the waves churned higher and the shadows closed in, the choice loomed before them, momentous, terrifying, and filled with treachery. Would they choose to unravel the mystery of the lake, or would one of them pay the ultimate price? And with that question hanging heavy in the air, the shadows tightened their grip, ready to reclaim what had nearly slipped through their fingers. The shadows surged forward, an immense force threatening to swallow Luke, Rebecca, and John. In that moment of desperation, a glimmer of bravery coursed through Luke's veins. I'll do it, he shouted, his voice piercing through the cacophony. I'll be the one. No. Rebecca grasped his arm, fear staining her features. You can't. We can do this together. But Luke could feel the dark weight pressing down around them, snatching at their resolve. This is how we end it. I can feel it. I have to know. He exchanged a quick glance with John, feeling a mix of courage and dread that tethered them all. Stay together, no matter what. Tread lightly, child, hissed the figures, their voices merging into a sordid symphony. Only one can break through to save the others. Luke measured his breath, heart pounding with each thundering pulse. It was now or never. With a surge of adrenaline, he pushed past the shadows encircling him, plunging into the lake's depths. The chill hit him like a wave of ice, sharp, seizing his breath. As he sank deeper, the cold shook him to his core, and everything blurred around him. The darkness swallowed him whole, but he could see glimpses of faces, shadows of children screaming through their silent torment. Help us! Their eyes cried, and he felt their pain, their desperation wrapping around him like a suffocating shroud. What do you want from me? Luke shouted, groping in the dark. A low echo of laughter reverberated around him, twisting like a knife. You think you can save them? This truth will shatter your very soul. Yet, undeterred, he pressed on, diving lower towards the pulsing glimmer he'd spotted earlier. He reached out, fingers brushing against the watery surface, feeling a warmth seep through the cold that was slowly claiming him. It was an old door, its edges sharp and silver-like, radiating promises of forgotten joys. Open it. A whispered chant echoed from behind him, voices mingling with the rushing waters. Only then can you release us. With trembling hands, Luke grasped the old handle and pulled. The door creaked open, unleashing a wave of light that shone more brilliant than anything he had ever known. In that blinding brilliance, he felt the children's anguish etch itself into his heart and soul, their sorrow merging with his. "Remember you were once like us." The voices echoed, and he recalled laughter, birthday candles flickering in the breeze, gifts wrapped in bright paper. It was a moment of collective joy twisted into unforgiving tragedy. "You can end this." With burgeoning ferocity, Luke felt clarity pierce through the noise of despair. "I know you. I remember." He shouted the words, each syllable stabilizing him. "You are not lost, you are alive. We will not let fear decide our fate again." Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, and the screams of agony transformed into shouts of hope, filling the water with energy. The children, trapped for so long, began to emerge, their faces illuminated by the radiance of Luke's remembrance. "Together!" Luke roared, pushing himself back to the surface, feeling strength surge through him as warmth cascaded down. "We are stronger when we remember our joy." With newfound determination, he leapt from the depths back into the world above, where Rebecca and John waited, their faces pale but hopeful. "Did you do it?" Rebecca gasped, breathless as he stumbled back onto the shore. "Just hold on," Luke cried as they clasped hands tightly. "We can break the cycle if we embrace each other and remember those lost." In that moment, the darkness erupted into a frenzy, the shadows twisting and twirling as if caught in a dire storm. Together, they stood firm against it. "You cannot defeat us," Luke declared. "We choose to remember joy, to remember the children who loved birthdays. We choose life." The shadows shuddered under their unity, flickering like a dying flame. The tortured souls of the children began to rise from the lake's depths, joining their voices in an ethereal chorus. "Thank you. Thank you for remembering." The weight of sorrow lifted, revealing gleaming smiles bathed in warm light. A great wave surged forth from the lake, bubbling and churning, but this time it was a force of love, not hatred. The shadows dissipated into wisps, blown away by their unyielding spirit. Tears streamed down Rebecca's cheeks as she watched the spirits reclaim their stories, bright laughter echoing into the night like a rejuvenating breeze. "We did it!" John shouted, wrapping his arms around them, as they stood united against the fading darkness, casting away centuries of anguish. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, they knew each birthday celebration would now be a testament to resilience. They would carry the memories with them, dedicated to cherishing every joyous moment, ensuring the past would never repeat itself, and as the chilling weight of the lake's hold faded at last, they turned to the lively colors of morning. "We can build a new beginning," Luke whispered, a brave smile crossing his face. "One where laughter and celebrations reign, unshadowed." They embraced, an anchor of warmth amid the echoing laughter that danced on the breeze. Luke, Rebecca, and John bonded tightly, finally able to celebrate life healed and free to bring joy to all the birthdays to come. But remember this, darkness is always lingering. Our joys must be fought for, embraced with courage and unity. So let's South hold each other close and always remember, now, if you want to stay part of this amazing journey, you need to subscribe now. Hit that bell and select all notifications so you don't miss any of our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Trust me, it really helps. And I want to hear your thoughts about this ending, so flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know the importance of supporting our community. Let us keep this going together.